Welcome to the Fantasy Endgame. I'm Pierre, here to help you with fantasy baseball for the 2022 season. Now, I've already gone over my must-have pitchers and my must-avoids, guys that you should absolutely be looking to grab and stay away from in fantasy drafts. What about those rookies, those prospects that are coming up that could be league winners or could just take up a roster space? Well, let me go over my top 10 pitching prospects right now, the guys who I think will get the call and be productive. And let's start with number 10, counting all the way down to 1. So I'm going to go with a guy that absolutely should have been higher on this list last year, Sixto Sanchez of my Marlins. Just didn't pitch, injury unfortunately sidelined him in spring training and just never saw the field, a long recovery. Now the good news is it wasn't Tommy John. It's just something that took a lot of time to recover from. You know what, maybe good. Give him that rest and recovery and get him ready, because some people just thought he wasn't completely ready. He looked great in his first taste of action in 2020, but there are some questions about his work ethic, about his command, about this, that, the other. And you know what? Just forget it. He was solid when he pitched in the majors. He's got a fastball that touches 98 miles per hour on the regular. And you know what? All that talk about command, he's had a low walk rate throughout the minors. And he did the same thing when he was with the Marlins, about 7% walk rate. So the only question really is health. And you know what? Like I said, that injury wasn't anything that should prevent him from hitting the field as soon as opening day comes. So I am tentatively going to call him the number 10 guy. I really see upside for more, trying to keep my fandom at bay here. But this is a guy that you absolutely have to keep your eye on. So don't sleep on Sixto in 2022. All right, coming in at number 9, Reid Detmers of the Los Angeles Angels. So some people worried after a disappointing, start to his major league career last year, maybe kind of another Griffin Canning, a guy who seems to have everything put together, nice college career, a 4-pitch mix, but just disappointing results in the bigs. Well, it's a little early to call him a bust. He's still got that prospect status after all. So give him a little bit of time. Obviously, these are young pitchers. You're going to see some inconsistency. The good news is that his calling card is command. Okay, he doesn't have overpowering stuff, and that's kind of the thing that you might worry about, is he doesn't have that fastball. He can reach back and blow batters away, but he can command all of his pitches, and he's got a wicked curveball. So with a little more seasoning, I think he could be a solid mid-rotation arm in real life and in fantasy. Now, the thing is, you're going to have to temper expectations because, going into the season, he's not guaranteed a rotation spot. In fact, talking about the fact that he not necessarily going to be in play for that 6th spot even, because Angels like to stretch out their rotation, obviously having Ohtani there. So you might have to see him battle in spring training to really get a job. But again, the upside here is clear, so I'm not giving up on him. It's way too early for that. This is a guy who does have the command that you look for in a young pitcher. He shouldn't get lit up frequently, if at all. So I got Detmers right now at number 9. Number 8, someone from the Rangers organization, and that is Cole Winn. Had my eye on him for a couple years, and he's progressed nicely through the minors. Also 4-pitch mix. His velocity a little bit higher than Detmers. The great thing about Winn is that going into the Rangers season, there is really not much competition, unlike with the Angels, talking about with Detmers. You look at the back end of that rotation, there's a lot of names that are questionable at best. This is a team that wants to compete. They just threw big money for offensive names like Corey Seager, Marcus Semien. You'd think that they want the best out there. They might go out and chase some players in free agency once it opens up again, but I think Winn has a legitimate shot at some point this season to have a rotation spot. So got him at number 8. All right, coming in at number 7 is a guy who was, not too long ago, the top pitching prospect in all of baseball, but has struggled a little bit in the minors, and that is Mackenzie Gore of the Padres. So look, we know the Padres also want to contend, so Gore, still being a young pitcher, is not guaranteed to be in the mix for a rotation spot, especially early in the season. But look, he's got filthy stuff still, regardless of how he has performed, at the AA, single A level. This is somebody who can top 97 on his fastball, and he has an elite changeup, 4+ pitches. Can he command them all consistently? We will see. But again, the upside is just too great to ignore. So right now, Mackenzie Gore is still a guy kind of on the watch list, not so much somebody to stash and redraft, but somebody you absolutely have to keep an eye on if and when he gets the call. So Mackenzie Gore right now, number 7. All right, number 6, let's go back to the Marlins, shall we? Edward Cabrera, a big flamethrower who can strike out batters with ease. Unfortunately, that also comes with a lot of walks. We see a lot of guys like this who rely on the heat, sometimes can lose, track of the strike zone. So Cabrera, kind of mixed bag as far as what he did in his major league debut. But again, small sample size, young pitcher, you have to take it with a grain of salt. So we know that there's a lot more volatility in his potential outcome. But again, we've seen that the Marlins are an organization, if nothing else, that can groom young pitchers. They've got so much talent in that farm system still in the pitching staff. Cabrera absolutely could earn a spot in that rotation. So let's see what happens. Now, some people think that because of his profile, he might be better suited to the bullpen eventually. But you know what? Right now, I do think he has a chance to be a starter. But I got him number 6 just due to strikeout upside alone. All right, sticking in the NL East, let's go to Washington, where Cade Cavalli, stop me if you heard this, is a big, hard-throwing right-hander who can strike out batters, but sometimes has command issues. All right, so Cavalli does have a chance to win a rotation spot this year. Washington, kind of on the rebuild. We'll see. Don't even know if Steven Strasburg is good to go. Of course, no more Max Scherzer. So Cavalli has a chance to be their next big pitching prospect, basically since Lucas Giolito. This is a guy who legitimately has a chance to become an ace at some point. He's primarily a fastball changeup guy, right? That changeup offsetting the top end velocity of the fastball. We'll see what happens as far as his debut. He's somebody who, again, may not quite be ready for the majors. It's hard to tell, but his upside is better than most of the pitchers I've already talked about. So think about Cade Cavalli, probably closer to midseason. Definitely keep an eye on him in the spring. All right, now we had to get at least one Mariners prospect in there. So at number 4, let's go with George Kirby, somebody who I see prospect hounds just absolutely fall in love with. And you see why. He pounds the strike zone. This is somebody who throws strikes with ease, and he does it with multiple pitch types. He has good command. He has the velocity. Got everything you need. The one thing, I guess, if you want to say is maybe a drawback, he doesn't necessarily have one clear put away pitch, right? He commands all his pitches effectively, but there's not one that's a plus pitch. Kirby also is somebody who's going to have to compete for playing time. I think he will get it this year. The Mariners, you just never know what they're going to do. And they do have a lot of young arms also who could fill his spot. So Kirby does have what you're looking for in terms of a guy who will be hitting the strike zone. His upside is clear. I think he could be a number 2 starter at best. So George Kirby right now, I have it as my number 4 prospect for this year. All right, getting to number 3, you know these have to be absolutely elite arms in order to make it this high. So let's talk about Grayson Rodriguez in Baltimore. I mean, ridiculous numbers. He struck out 161 minor leaguers in 103 innings. That's the kind of upside you're looking for. Now, you're thinking going to Baltimore, not a great spot, but you may have heard Baltimore moving those fences out in Camden Yards and moving the left field fences out, no doubt, it's going to help just a little bit. It may not make a huge impact, but still, it can't hurt. It's not going to necessarily be the bandbox that it has been. Look, Baltimore is a team that is slowly but surely getting there with a young talent. They might be able to even contend in a year or two. But Rodriguez, clearly the best arm they have in that system, and one of the filthiest left-handers that you'll see this year. I think we're going to see him, maybe not right away, but he's definitely going to have a chance to enter that rotation, I'd say by June at the latest. So Grayson Rodriguez, you absolutely have to keep an eye on. He's my number 3 prospect for 2022. All right, coming in number 2 is Hunter Greene of the Reds. So you look at a guy who not only hits 100 miles per hour, he does that on average, and he's been clocked as high as 104. No, I'm not exaggerating. That's what he can do. He just absolutely has a monster arm. The problem is, as you've seen so many times with a hard thrower, sometimes come injuries, and this is somebody who spent over a year recovering from Tommy John, just getting back to it last year. Obviously, there's always a risk there, but he should be good to go right now. Reconstructed elbow. We'll see if that helps. Now, the question is, if he goes out there, number 1, Is he going to adapt to the pro game and be able to survive in the Great American Ballpark? Of course, Cincinnati, not a pitcher's dream. Okay, so he's got that working against him. And will he be on any sort of pitch count or inning limit? It is definitely possible. Some people think it might be smart to start him out at least in the bullpen. You know what? That might not be such a bad thing. Cincinnati, the whole Amir Garrett, Lucas Sims thing didn't quite work out in the closing situation. If you have a guy who can go over 100 miles per hour, basically he can come in and be their next right-handed version of Aroldis Chapman. You're looking at a guy who could become their closer, at least in the short term before becoming a starter. That's all speculation, but still, this guy has so much punch-out potential. Wherever he winds up, you definitely want to have him on your roster. So I got Hunter Greene number 2. And number 1 is going to be Shane Baz of the Tampa Bay Rays. Tampa Bay, a lot of success with pitchers. Now, the concern with him, like with so many Rays pitchers, is what is his role going to be, and is there going to be sort of a innings restriction for him? Now, with him, it's a little different because what the Rays do, it's not so much to say, okay, after X amount of innings, you're going to be shut down, is they limit pitch counts within games. So a guy like Shane McClanahan, for example, last year, barely even averaged 80 pitches per start. So that could hurt because the fact that Baz, maybe doesn't go more than 5 innings in any given, outing, 6 max. That hurts, the ability to rack up wins, even quality starts. If you can't go more than 6 innings, you can't even qualify for that. So it hurts in that sense. And of course, the counting stats. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But obviously, the talent is there. This is somebody who in his 3, I know it's a small sample again, but 3 major league starts last year, we saw a glimpse of his talent. 2.08 ERA, 0.68 whip, and 37% strikeout rate. Don't think he will sustain quite that level of production, but still, the ceiling is super high for him, and we know, is major league ready. He'll be on the roster come opening day. So Shane Baz right now is the number 1 pitching prospect for this season. All right, guys, also check out my top 10 hitting prospects for 2022 here all offseason long to help you win and dominate your fantasy draft. All right, thanks for watching.